On February 12, 1864, a prodigious man of war mysteriously disappeared in Mali during his last battle, in the heart of the cliffs of Bandiagara. His name, Elhaj Omar Foutiyou Tall, resonates as a symbol of power, courage and determination. Master of the famous Conqueror Mobadiah Kubo, Elhaj Omar, as a leader and peerless strategist, would eventually extend his hold on the sub-region, thus forming the Toucouleur Empire, which today encompasses vast territories in Guinea, Senegal and Mali. He is unquestionably one of the fiercest opponents of the colonizers, leaving an indelible mark on the history of West Africa in the 19th century. As a feared warlord and enlightened religious leader, he fought many battles, both to spread Islam and to resist the French occupation. There are many opinions about this man's life. For some, he was an ambitious military leader, for others, a scholar and enlightened teacher, and for some, an accomplished mystic with extraordinary powers. Despite its considerable influence, its history remains largely unknown to a large part of Africans. So, who was he really? Let's discover the story of this great African conqueror, Elhaj Omar Foutiyou Tall. Elhaj Omar Tall, also known as Omar Foutiyou Tall or Omar Foutiyou Tall, was a multifaceted man, ruler, warlord, Muslim scholar, and leader of the Sufi congregation of the Tijaniya. Born around 1797 in the north of present-day Senegal, in Halwa, Omar Tall came from a respected family of notables and religious leaders, the Torodo, deeply devoted to the Quran and the Sunnah. His father, Tiano Seydou Tall, is a respected scholar who recites the Quran daily while working in the fields. He was the most respected Muslim in the village of Halwa. He taught the Quran to students, and Omar, from an early age, perfected his study of Arabic and the Quran with Moorish scholars, who initiated him into the Tijani Brotherhood. As for his mother, her name was Sokna Adoma Istaim, the term Sokna being a nickname meaning the purified one. In fact, Omar Tall used to sing his praises in his words, "I have left many men like my father in Futa, but I have not left women comparable to my mother." By the age of 12, Omar had already memorized the entire Quran. He continued to delve into Muslim jurisprudence, tajweed, which is the technique of reading the Quran, the Arabic language, and other religious sciences. His early gifts caught the attention of Almami Yusufu, one of the most respected marabouts of his time. It was the latter who recognized Omar's exceptional talents and leadership abilities when he was still a child. Tradition has it that it was from this moment that the life of Alpha Villa, Almami Yusufu's grandson, was dedicated to Omar Tall, and he became one of his best warriors. To continue his education, Omar Tall was sent to other scholars in various villages in Futa. Subsequently, the young Omar went to the Futa Jalen to deepen his mystical knowledge and continue his initiation into the Tidjaniya. At the age of 23 in 1827, Omar Tall decided to perfect his knowledge. For nearly 20 years, he undertook a series of journeys through North Africa and Arabia, seeking to enrich his knowledge. His journey first took him to present-day Mali, where he went to Hamdalahi, receiving a warm welcome from Amadou Chiko, the founder of the theocratic empire of Massina. He then spent several months in Sokoto, at the court of Muhammad Bello, the Emir of Sokoto in Nigeria. After this journey into the interior of Sudan, Elhaj Omar Tall continues his journey to Cairo. However, the decisive moment in his life came during his visit to Mecca around 1830 or 1833, depending on the sources. There, in the sacred places of Islam, he made the crucial meeting with the scholar Sheikh Muhammad Al-Ghali, a disciple of the true founder of the Tidjaniya Brotherhood, Sheikh Ahmed Tijani. Muhammad Al-Ghali exerted a profound and decisive influence on him. It was this sage who bestowed on him the prestigious title of El-Hajj, meaning the pilgrim, as well as the even more glorious title of Caliph of the Tidjaniya Brotherhood for Sudan. His ultimate mission is to return to Sudan, to spread Islam in a region where animism predominates. After his stay in Mecca, his journey took him first to Jerusalem and then to Syria, where he performed a miraculous act by healing the king's crippled child, Ibrahim Pasha. This feat consecrates him as a blessed man, holder of the precious Baraka. Back at Cairo's Al-Azhar University, a major challenge awaits Omar Tall. Some scholars, doubting a black man's knowledge of Islam, decide to put him to the test. Faced with the contempt of those who consider his knowledge inferior because of his skin color, Omar Tall is summoned for an interrogation aimed at probing his theological knowledge. With striking eloquence, he refutes his detractors, defending the idea that the color of one's skin does not affect the value of the treasure that resides in each individual. According to oral tradition, he even told his detractors, "The envelope has never diminished the value of the treasure that is enclosed in it, so inconsistent poets, do not walk around the Kaaba, the sacred house of Allah, for it is shrouded in black. O inattentive poets, do not read the Quran anymore, for its verses are written in black. Do not, therefore, answer the call to prayer, for the first stone was given, and at the command of Muhammad our model, by the Abyssinian Bilal, therefore a black man. Make haste to give up your head covered with black hair. Don't forget that it is with the irreplaceable black eye that the eye is able to discern." This series of insightful comparisons leaves his opponent speechless, and will triumph over all these prejudices. Back in Africa, Omar Tall was greeted with honors by Muhammad Bello, the Emir of Sokoto, who this time gave him gifts and the hand of his own daughter, Maryam, in marriage. This mark of respect testifies to the prestige already acquired by Omar Tall thanks to his deep knowledge of Islam. However, there are also concerns about its fame. In Hamdolohi in Massina, he was received with dignity but coldness by Chief Amadou Chiku, aware of Omar Tall's military ambitions and the threat that his prestige posed to the established power. Omar Tall even escaped an assassination attempt in Massina, orchestrated by this leader. Later, during his stay in Sigu, he was captured by King Tayafulo Daira, where he remained detained for 40 days. Eventually, the king's sister, Nia Daira, won over by Omar's mysterious personality, managed to convince him to release him, although the king believed that he should have perished under such conditions. In the Futa Toro region, where he is from, local leaders are suspicious of the reformist version of Tijanism promoted by Omar Tall. In 1845, because of this mistrust, he was forced to leave this area of Futa Toro. Omar Tall therefore decided to return to Futa Jalan, where the Almami authorized him to create a Zawiya, a school of the Tijaniya Brotherhood. From there, he attracted many disciples, mainly from his native country, the Futa Toro. His Zawiya became a center for the propagation of Tijanism, advocating a deep knowledge of God. It was also in this place that he wrote his famous book, Rima, meaning the spears, and inviting Muslims to embrace the Tijan way. Finally, Omar Tall decided to return to Halwa, after an absence of 20 years. There, he proclaimed his desire to Islamize Black Africa through jihad and envisioned the creation of a vast Muslim empire in West Africa. In 1850, this desire to complete his mission materialized with the establishment of his base in Dingwere, a village located in Guinea, which he bought with the gold of Boer, from the formidable ruler of the Kingdom of Tomba, Yimba Soko. In this village, Omar Tall began to prepare for his holy war, assembling an army composed of his followers, called the Talibs, who came from all over the Sahel region and were mainly converts to Islam. In Dingwere, Omar Tall transformed the city into a large impenetrable fortress, called Tota. Dingwere was also transformed into a religious center, with the construction of a large mosque with a roof 16 meters high and a base 40 meters in diameter. This mosque remains a place of Tidian Islam of great importance. The Talibs cultivate the fields and fill the granaries of Dingwere. The city is radiant, and its population reaches between 8,000 and 10,000 inhabitants. With these military preparations, Omar Tall laid the foundations of what would later become a vast Muslim empire. To equip his army, Omar Tall bought rifles from the British in Sierra Leone and the Gambia, paying with the gold of Boer. He also had a large quantity of powder produced locally. Later, during his conquest of the states of Sudan, he had heavy weapons, cannons and shells, assisted by a new ally, Samba Ndiaye, an engineer of Sonic origin who had once been a hostage in St. Louis for 20 years. However, from this point on, the French colonizers began to perceive Omar Tall as a threat to their interest in Africa. Omar Tall, in his call for holy war, recalls the glorious past of the Futonkais, flattering their pride. It was probably inspired by the holy war waged in Nigeria by Usman Dan Fodio, the Sultan of Sokoto. Omar Tall wishes to restore and reform Islam through jihad, convinced that this mission is a divine will, with the promise of paradise as a reward. The Holy War began in 1850 in response to an attack by the enemy's king of Tomba, who was worried about the growing influence of Omar Tall. Many Bambara and Mandinka kingdoms were conquered as Omar Tall's empire expanded. In March 1854, he issued a decree to launch a jihad aimed at eliminating pagans and guiding misguided Muslims on the path of faith. Omar Tall then turned his attention to the enemy's kingdoms of Bambouk, the gold mining region on the left bank of Senegal, and then to the Bambara kingdoms of Qatar. After fierce battles, he established Nioro as his capital in 1856. The rapidity of this first conquest surprised the enemy forces and aroused the concern of Beko's French command. But for El Hajj Omar, these military successes only strengthened his faith in his religious mission. El Hajj Omar is also a shrewd strategist, capable of sowing discord among his opponents by forging alliances with the weakest to confront the more powerful. However, the military also has many weaknesses. It resembles a disorganized mob of women, children, prisoners, and merchants. There is a lack of coordination between the commands of the various army corps. In addition, the army depends on coastal regions, which it does not control, for its arms supply. The 2 cannons at its disposal, despite their strategic importance, proved insufficient in the face of better-equipped enemies. In 1854, Louis Faidherbe became the governor of Senegal. He has a big mission in mind, to protect the Senegal River and prevent El Hajj Omar, a man the French see as a threat, from approaching. To do this, he decided to build a fort in Medina, the capital of the Kingdom of Kasso, and to seal an alliance with that kingdom. But this alliance sparked a war with Sheikh Omar, because he didn't like the fact that a Muslim like him teamed up with a non-believer. In the same year, an inevitable meeting took place between Omar Tall and Louis Faidherbe in Medina, where Sheikh Omar's supporters attacked the French fort. They were determined, fanatical, and attacked fiercely, while the fort was defended by Paul Hawley, a Métis from St. Louis. For more than 3 months, Omar Tall managed to besiege the fort of Medina, a key location to control the routes to Mauritania, Guinea, Gambia, and southwestern Senegal. Inside the fort, there were far fewer French soldiers, about 200 to 300, while Hajj Omar's army was much larger and better equipped, with between 20,000 and 25,000 fighters. However, on July 18, 1857, the siege of Omar Tall failed when Faidherbe arrived with reinforcements. It is a moment of relief for the people of Lower Senegal. This favorable outcome was made possible by the arrival of the rainy season, which allowed Faidherbe to sail the Senegal River with armed boats to disperse the attackers. Consciously faced with the military superiority of the French, Omar Tall signed an agreement with Faidherbe in August 1860. This agreement, which did not last long, demarcated the Senegal River as a common border. In any case, this temporary truce allowed El Hajj Omar to move eastward and concentrate on the pagan Bambaras, who, although Muslims, had refused to support him against the enemies of the faith. He even eliminated the last Bambara king after the Battle of Ngano on March 10, 1861. Whereas until now Omar Tall had clashed with the enemies Bambara and the Christian French, he is now turning his attention to the smaller Islamic states in the region. By installing his son Amadou Tall as Imam of Sigu, Omar Tall decided to march on Hamdalohi, the capital of the Fulani kingdom of Massina, which fiercely resisted his advance. The ensuing battle is the most famous of Omar Tall's epic, where Hamdalohi was destroyed on March 16, 1862, after a series of 3 battles that left more than 70,000 dead. El Hajj Omar Tall thus became the master of the largest expanse of territory ever controlled by a black chief. This Toucouleur Empire stretched for 1,000 kilometers from east to west, with major strongholds at Dingore, Nioro, Sigu and Bandiagara in the eastern regions. However, at more than 65 years old, Omar Tall has to deal with persistent internal tensions in his empire, which has been rapidly built thanks to the impetus of his Toucouleur Talibs. The latter, while initially sharing Omar Tall's quest, seem increasingly obsessed with accumulating wealth and power, to the detriment of converting their subjects to Islam. Subsequently, Omar Tall decided to turn to Timbuktu. But his path was blocked in 1863 by an impressive coalition of Tuaregs, Moors and Fulani. But, even if this colossal obstacle does not slow down his determination, Omar Tall sees his military strength gradually diminish, and his troops are exhausted. Also, during the fighting, one of his great generals, Alpha Omar Tiano Bela, lost his life on the battlefield. Faced with this obvious disadvantage, Omar Tall was forced to retreat. He then took refuge in the caves of Digambara, near Bandiagara, where he mysteriously disappeared on February 12, 1864, at the age of nearly 70. He probably died a victim of the explosion of the gunpowder reserves, in the same cave where he had sought refuge. His nephew, Tidiane Tall, took over from Omar Tall and set up the capital of the Toucouleur Empire in Bandiagara, which he managed for about 20 years. Amadou Tall wanted to continue the work of his father Omar Tall by preserving the empire in Ségou. However, it has faced internal conflict and rival demands, including those of the Bambara seeking to seize power. At the same time, French troops, led by Louis Aconard and determined to eliminate all resistance to colonization, continued their advance. In the 1880s, Amadou began to disarm his army and increasingly rely on the loyalty of the subjugated peoples to maintain order. He also decided to spread the Tidianiya and form an alliance with Semori to raise forces. Unfortunately, this policy is proving counterproductive. Not only did Amadou fail to win new loyalties, but he also lost the support of the Toucouleurs themselves, seeing their privileged status deteriorate. The French, experts in the art of divide and rule, exploited this situation by building forts on Toucouleur territory and concluding treaties of friendship with the Bambara, the enemies of the Toucouleurs at the time. From 1890, French troops conquered the empire, successively taking Ségou, Massina, and Timbuktu. After heroic resistance, Amadou Tall succumbed to the French in 1893, and the former empire was quickly integrated into the French overseas territories, marking the end of the Toucouleur Empire. Thus ended the reign of El Hadj Omar, giving way to one of his disciples, Mobadaya Kubo, who would follow in the footsteps of his master by seizing Saloum in 1864. Mobadaya Kubo then extended his influence to neighboring pagan kingdoms such as Baal, Sine, Welo and Jollof, with the aim of bringing about the triumph of Islam. Because of his holy war, which was a continuation of El Hadj Omar's work, Mobadaya Kubo was declared a public enemy by the settlers. He was killed on July 18, 1867 during a fierce battle against Kumba Nofin Douf, the king of Sine. Omar Tall still stirs up passionate debates about his legacy, with various interpretations. The Senegalese celebrate him as a hero of the struggle against French rule, while Malian sources present him as an invader who paved the way for the French by weakening West Africa. His biography remains the subject of heated controversy, divided between Islamic historians who glorify him as a great conqueror and African nationalists who see him as a symbol of anti-colonial resistance. His biography remains, therefore, an enigma. Beyond his own story, Omar Tall is the extension, in West Africa, of the action of Cheikh Ahmed Tijani, a native of southern Algeria who died in Fez, Morocco. His spiritual legacy continues through figures such as El Hadj Malick Sy in Senegal, who had a deep respect for his mentor, even dedicating an eloquent poem to his master, "Who will make my life happy after the death of my master Omar? I have lost the one who refused injustice, the one who was in the habit of destroying those who tampered with religion and the pagans." It's a complex and sometimes difficult story to hear, but it's essential to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. The lesson to be learned is that internal conflicts, for causes that were not always vital, facilitated French colonial expansion, as many survivors of these unjustified conflicts ended up siding with the French.